over to our MC, Chansu Lin, and we'll get started at the program.
Thank you. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We welcome all of you to our city of Linden, Asian American Pacific Island Heritage Month program, which features Fujian food culture program. My name is Senju Lin. I will serve as your MC today. Chinese is my native language. I will speak to you in English, unless you prefer Chinese. So many of us here today, we are immigrants or children of immigrants. Therefore, we all understand the challenges and difficulty to adapt to a new culture and a new language. But it's not the adversity. As we embrace to the new culture and new country, we also give up us. That's why make Americans so great. It embraces us all and grow strong by our collective contribution. On this special day, we celebrate Asian American heritage by featuring Fujian food cultural program. We also showcase those who came to this country and those who went to abroad to learn about others firsthand. We celebrate today with spirit and pride. To start our program, let me introduce our mayor, our Honorable Mayor, Derek Armstead, who will share his thoughts and carry out this celebration.
Thank you. She said honorable. Oh boy, I've been called a lot worse, but I'll take honorable today. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to open the City of Linden's official ceremony to celebrate Asian American Pacific Islander Month. I welcome you all. Today we celebrate generations of Asian and Pacific Islanders who have come to America and enriched America's history. They're a vital part of America's future success. In our ceremony, we honor their achievements and contributions today. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter signed a bill that established Pacific Asian American Heritage Week. Later in 1990, President George Bush signed a bill extending the celebration and establishing Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. We here in Linden are particularly proud to embrace all cultures. We are a diverse and vibrant city. We live and work together in harmony. It is right and appropriate that we carry out this celebration in the spirit in which it was intended. In Linden, it's okay to be from somewhere else. In Linden, we learn from each other, and we become stronger, more understanding because of it. Not only do we live this way, but we reach out on a global level. Today, we're bringing many Linden voices to tell their story. We have a successful Linden Asian American businesswoman. We have our own students who took the challenge and traveled to Fujian province to immerse themselves in another culture. We have the voices of educators who learned from their experiences, supervised our students, took the measure of a different educational system, and found ways to give back and leave part of ourselves where we visited. That is why today we have invited our friends from the Fujian Southeast Network to join with us in this celebration. I thank them for sharing with us a glimpse into their culture with photos, tea, crafts, and food. It all fits together because we're all together. Celebrating Asian American Pacific Islander Month really includes us all. Most of our families come to this city at different times and for different reasons, and from different places. My own grandfather arrived in Linden in 1926, looking for a better future that he could expect in the South. His challenges of fitting into and making a good life were identical to the challenges of many immigrants from other countries. Today, we celebrate the accomplishments of Asian American Pacific Islanders, but this is not a one-day thing or a one-group thing. We give equal respect throughout the year to all who come from elsewhere, put down their roots, and take a stand that is where they were going to live to make this home. As mayor of the city of Linden, today I'm feeling like an Asian American Pacific Islander myself. I feel this way today. I'm not celebrating something different, I'm celebrating our togetherness. I'm excited to hear that the voices of our speakers. Afterwards, I look forward to the wonderful culture show from the Fujian Southeast Network. I'm very proud to be a mayor of this great city, a city that embraces all who come. Thank you all.
Hi. To understand the achievements of Asian American, we need to listen to the voice of those who came to this country and who succeed. We are very fortunate to have Ms. Margaret Lam, the business owner in Linden, to address her thoughts about being a Chinese American in Linden. Let's welcome Mrs. Margaret Lam.
Well, I think you can see that I'm not Mrs. Margaret Lam. We all have to adjust in ways that the pandemic has presented ourselves. And unfortunately, Mrs. Lam this morning is in isolation. So she asked if I would please read her speech. So when I do, please don't see the person you're seeing in front of you reading it. Please see a successful Asian American woman who had these thoughts. She writes, "Good afternoon. My family came to America in 1967 from Hong Kong. We were in the rice business. After many years, we opened our distribution warehouse here in Linden. It was an easy decision to make. Linden is centrally located. It is very business-friendly and has wonderful people. I am an Asian American, and I love my country. I loudly sing our national anthem. I am proud of our flag. I feel fortunate every day. In America, the country where my children and grandchildren were born, it is okay to have come from someplace else. Many of us have. Here, it is not so important where you came from, but what type of person you are now. Our country's motto says it to perfection, out of many, one. As Asian Americans, we want to give back to our country. One of the gifts we can give is to give of ourselves, our heritage, our culture, and our language. We can share where we came from, who we were, and who we are now. Then, together, as a united people, we can go forward and decide who we want to be in the future. America is great because it embraces all who come. America will stay great because of all who stayed. I have been involved in promoting the Chinese culture here in New Jersey for over 5 decades. I have worked for government leaders and cultural organizations to promote the accomplishments of Chinese Americans and to build cultural understanding between all Americans. For 33 years, I have headed the New Jersey Chinese Festival. I am proud of my work, just as I am proud to have my business located here in Linden. Mayor Armstead, thank you for inviting me today to speak at Linden's Asian American Pacific Islander Month celebration. It is my honor to continue to serve, to live, and work together. Thank you for leading this celebration, and for leading our city to live as one. And those were Margaret Lamb's remarks.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Margaret Lam. Now, let me introduce Dr. Wei Liu. Dr. Wei Liu, the journalist representing the Dongnan Media Network, the sponsor of the Impression of Fujian show. Let's welcome Dr. Liu.
Maybe I just first time English speak. Okay, first language to Chinese. So good afternoon and hello to everyone. Mayor and Mr. Thank you for celebrating Asian American Pacific Island Month. Thank you for including the impression of Fujian in this wonderful program. You and the First Lady have been so supportive in embrace all culture. Your leadership makes Linden and speak a special place to live. And we do. And spread and represent Dongnan Media Network. But I am also an old friend of Linden. It was my pleasure to meet many Linden students when they come to Xiamen and Fuzhou in Fujian. All their exchange trips. You students talk and deep interest in learning about Chinese culture. I can show the picture, a lot of picture. This picture in Fuzhou number 3 high school. This one is in Xiamen, Tong'an. This First Lady here. Okay, together. This one just Shenzhen, just in Xiamen, Tong'an. Okay. This one in Xiamen University. This one in Xiamen University. Yeah, and Jiping here, right? And High Sky. I don't know what's your name. Okay, this Linden, the teacher. Yeah. This one, this is Linden, the students, right? Okay, I deeply value all the memories of those trips, and you should be proud of how these Linden students represent this fine city. Thank you for your support. This is my honor to have the speech today. Thank you again. Thank you.
I think Dr. Liu deserves another big applause. This is his speech in his first speech in English, and he tried very hard every day. And he called me every night. Okay, next, I would like to ask Mr. David Zhu, journalist also with the Donna Media Network, to come forward for the presentation of gifts to Mayor Armstead. Mr. Mayor, would you join us for the presentation of the gift to City of Linden? Those two gifts are painting of blue and his blessing. Okay, and this one is the traditional Fujian housing. Okay, so each of the this unit has the whole family living there. It's made out of the clays and brown rice sugar.
My grandfather first came to Linden, he had 12 children. I don't know, and he adopted two, so there's 15 kids now. He had a much bigger one than that now.
And it's also anti-earthquake too, in case.
I don't have much, but it's a small gift. He already has one, but I don't think it's.
Oh, okay.
This is an official Linden pen.
Oh, okay.
Linden was named after the linden tree. So if anybody asks you what that funny looking thing is, it's a linden tree.
Oh, okay, that's great. Wonderful.
You put it back in the envelope. You got enough pens.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
She may reach you down. Huh?
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Zhu. Next, we want to hear from our young people who when at Linden High School traveled to Fujian province to learn another culture. Please welcome Ms. Pearl Desert. Hey! The former Linden students who traveled to Fujian would like to talk about her experience.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. As she said, my name is Pearl Desir. I am a Linden High School IB diploma graduate of the class of 2013. Anyways, one of the highlights of my high school journey was participating in the Chinese student exchange program. At the time, despite not taking a Mandarin course, I was welcomed with open arms when I stated my interest to visit China. I still remember how I felt when they said yes. I say this because back in Linden, at the time, of course, I don't think students were really encouraged, if they weren't taking a particular language, to attend those exchange trips. So when they said yes, I thought to myself that this was the initial sign I had received of the warmth and supporting nature of the Chinese community. When we visited many parts of China, including Hong Kong, The exchange itself consisted of two main stops, right? One in Xiamen and the other in Fuzhou. For both stops, we were assigned a family. In Xiamen, I stayed with a family of one. I remember how attentive my hostess were, how they ensured that I felt comfortable. I specifically remember how my mother cooked all the best seafood, because in Xiamen, that region particularly is near the sea. In Xiamen, we spent a lot of time in school. That is definitely one of the differences that I noticed between the US and school in Xiamen. In Xiamen, school lasted all day. Yeah. Well, there I took calligraphy courses, Mandarin courses, of course, but I also participated in paper cutting and tea ceremony trees, which I think you all get to experience today as well. I also remember the endless sightseeings, how we took the ferry to Gulongyu Island, or when we visited the Namputuo Temple. I can list so many of the places that I've been blessed to see, but it was the people who truly made an impact on me. For example, I remember when my brother, who knew I was a fashionista even back then, took me to the city center alongside his friends to go around and shop, right? I remember I felt so appreciated because he had known and found out such a small fact about me, and it made me feel seen. Our next stop was in Fuzhou, and it was just as exciting. We left the beaches in Xiamen to embrace the city life. In Fuzhou, I stayed with a family of 3. This was different because they owned one of the most beautiful apartments with one of the most phenomenal view of the city. And I remember I spent a lot of time eating in Fuzhou. I must admit that the food to me there was, in my opinion, of course, a world's delicacy. And the reason for that is because I am particularly interested in red meat and fried food, and in Fuzhou, they had a lot of that. Yeah. The school we went to in Fuzhou was renowned to have students, or what we call the top students of that region. I witnessed firsthand how those students, they really studied very hard to take their own version of the SATs. I forgot what it's called. But the reason for that is because they wanted to come here to the United States and study at one of our best schools, particularly the Ivy Leagues. I remember when my sister and I would be comparing our notes, even though I was taking the international baccalaureate program here, which was very, very intense, by the way. I remember my workload and hers were, like, the difference was very stark. So that made me realize how, I guess, intensive, school was in China. This, however, I must say, never stopped my sister from having a particularly fun social life. When we were in Fuzhou together, I spent a lot of the time having fun, going to KTVs, which is Chinese karaoke. We went shopping a lot because, I love shopping, and of course, we ate out a lot. We also visited a lot of the temples, Buddhist temples, parks, or we simply walked down the streets. To conclude my recollection, I will say this. It was in Xiamen that I learned how to make my first dumpling, took my first calligraphy course, and experienced my first ever kabuki-style theater. And I'm saying this because when I was in IB, one of my core, focus was theater. It was in Fuzhou that I saw my first pandas and experienced my first hot spring, natural one, and walked my first Chinese market, which was called at the time, I believe, Student Street. To this day, despite having traveled around the world, whenever I mention visiting China, people are intrigued. And that, to me, is the magic of China. And I hope more students get to experience it. Once again, my name is Pearl Desir. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Miss Pearl. I like her first name. Did you buy your shoes in China? We now have with us the principal of Linden High School, Yolanda Oreo. I tried.
That was very close. That was very close. Ni hao. That's where it stops. It is my honor to be here today as principal of Linden High School and to join in the celebration of the Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month and share a little of my experience. For many years now, Linden High School and Fuzhou No. 3 have maintained a partnership founded in friendship, global citizenship, and a commitment to educational excellence. As the principal of Linden High School, I value this sisterhood and look forward to many more years of collaboration. In 2011, the distinguished principal of Fuzhou No. 3 honored us by visiting Linden High School. Our students have bonded over time with homestays in both countries. Then, in 2017, I had the great honor and privilege of being invited to the very beautiful city of Fuzhou to join in the spectacular 75th anniversary celebration. During my visit, I was graciously received and welcomed to tour not only the school, but the province. I was so impressed by the commitment of students and educators. I particularly remember stopping by a cafe in Fuzhou during lunchtime. A group of students were at a nearby table enjoying their snacks while busy poring over textbooks. As an educator, that was certainly gratifying. During my visit, I saw and experienced so much in Fuzhou. A visit to the supermarket was definitely eye-opening. It looked very different than ShopRite. Everything was so fresh. So fresh, in fact, that the fish were contained, they were in open aquariums. So as I was perusing the unique feel of the market and walked by, a huge fish leapt out of the tank and began flopping vigorously on the floor. I will tell you that I almost leapt right into Dr. Tomasik's arms. I was so frightened, and I think he had a pretty good laugh. But ultimately, what I found is that we are more similar than we are different. Students strive to succeed and are dedicated to the task of learning. Teachers, for their part, are dedicated to helping children succeed and reach educational excellence. Today, I stand here as principal of Linden High School, reestablishing this sisterhood. I am so proud of the bonds that we have established and look forward to many, many more years of friendship. Shashay.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Yelena?
Yolanda?
Yes.
I really like your scarf.
Thank you.
Did you buy it in China?
I did.
Wow! Now we had an opportunity, we had an excuse to go to China.
Yes.
Next, we have our former principal of Linden High School, Mrs. Antoinette Madrak. Woo-hoo!
I know that was a challenge. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. As I reflect back to 9 years ago, my heart is full with the many facets the experience of bringing students to China as an administrator has given me. When an administrator or teacher takes on an exchange or field trip that involves students being away from their families, the sense of responsibility is heavy. But along with that sense of responsibility also comes the sense of joy at being able to facilitate extraordinary experiences for our students. This was one extraordinary experience that I was blessed to have. From the time I arrived in China to my departure, I was treated with such warm hospitality, kindness, and respect. It was truly an honor to be in my shaman host family's household. They took such good care of me and shared their family's stories and traditions on such a personal level. I felt like a precious gem that they were carefully guarding. The school, families, and students supported our students in providing an environment where exchanging of ideas, culture, and traditions were shared and revered. The many stops of our exchange included Hong Kong, Xiamen, Fuzhou, Tulou, and Beijing. We experienced cruising on a ferry as we toured the island of Gulangyu, to riding a bullet train to Fuzhou. In Beijing, we had many stops, but I was thrilled to experience the Great Wall of China and the Forbidden City. The opportunity I had while staying at the school dormitories and being with families not only gave me more appreciation of the people of China, but for our own students as well. Our group has a saying, "We will always have China." It is a special bond that only gets created when teachers and administrators take their students on these types of experiences. Our world is becoming a smaller place due to advances in technology, communication, and travel. In this ever-changing world, there's one constant tenet. Relationships are essential in order to work together to make this world a better place. Education and empathy are pathways to trust, which build those relationships. The Chinese exchange program gave our students that pathway to build value relationships with students and staff from around the world. In closing, the intricacies of the logistics to enable our students to travel to China would not have been possible without the assistance of one special woman, Mrs. Chuping Tomasik. Known as Mommy Tomasik to many, her expertise and passion to share Chinese culture have made the exchanges between Linden and China a success of meaningful friendships and memories for many. Thank you for inviting me here today to be part of this beautiful celebration of Asian and Pacific Islander culture. Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Tamazi. Mrs. Modrak told me she's ready to go back to China tomorrow. Right? Next, we have this young man, Mr. Eloy Delgado, who has close involved in our exchange visit in China and New Jersey.
Well, hello, good afternoon, Linden. It's great to be home. Greetings to Mayor Armstead, Superintendent Tomazik, Principal Yelena Hore, Principal Antoinette Modrak, First Lady Danny Erline, council members, and I don't know if there's Board of Education members, but hello. Did I miss anyone? And of course, I see former students in here. That always makes my heart full. But seriously, it is so good to be home. Oh, wait, and my former supervisor, Kevin Lamasha. Oh, buddy. 7 years ago, I was afforded a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity of teaching ESL in Wenzhou, China. I was humbled and honored that I was picked among the many qualified candidates. At this time, I had about 3 to 4 years of teaching experience in Linden Public Schools, and I was feeling increasingly comfortable in my craft, so I accepted the challenge. As my colleagues and I got busy planning for our new students, we began asking the administrators, where's the pacing guide, curriculum standards, expectations, and a million more acronyms that they had no idea what we were talking about. The administrators looked at us and said, you are the teachers. You are the experts. Do what's best for your students and let us know what you need and we'll support you. We had full license and responsibility to do what was best for the students of China. What was amazing about working with my students was to see how appreciative they were of the language instruction I was able to provide for them. It was the first time they had an American educator. It was the first time they had an American educator of Cuban and Dominican descent, no less. We delved deeply into learning about various cultures, exploring all types of customs, foods, and fundamentally, learning about our own unique human identity. While my students were very grateful for the lessons, what they don't know is how much they changed me for the better. While in China, I became a student once again. I was learning their language as much as they were learning mine, but please don't quiz me. I don't think I retained as much as they did. This experience allowed for me to feel exactly how ESL students feel when they first arrive to the United States. My Chinese students gave me the greater gift of empathy that I can never repay them for. In Linden Public Schools, under the leadership of Superintendent Tomazik, and a woman who is affectionately called Mom by so many, we expanded cultural exchange programs that allowed our students, our Linden students, to experience the world. Here's what happens when we have cultural exchange programs. While we celebrate our great diversity and differences, we learn that the human values of empathy, love, and understanding are the components that bind all 9 billion human beings together. In a world that at times seems broken and disconnected, these programs plant the seeds needed to create a better world. Thank you, Mayor Armstead, for ensuring that Linden, New Jersey, it is a community that accepts, values, and celebrates diversity. If the world could only take a few lessons from Linden, we would live in a much better place. While my former students in China may not know how grateful I am to them, I want to express my gratitude towards a few individuals here. Superintendent Tomazik, you hired me in Linden Public Schools, and you hired me and trusted me as an alternate route candidate, and for that I will always be grateful. You helped change the trajectory of my life, and in turn I hope I was able to do the same for the children here in Linden. Principal Horry, you were my principal during a very challenging moment of my life recently, and for your support, I will always be grateful. Principal Mojak, you know that those first few months were a little challenging as I tried to get the students to do group work. And you heard me, you gave me pedagogical tips, and you trusted me to do what's best for them. Thank you. Mayor Armstead and First Lady Danny Erline, thank you for always allowing me to come back and contribute to our Linden family. Kevin, you were a great supportive boss that I will never forget. You always trusted me, whether at the high school, School 8, with the children, and gave me the support I needed to thrive. May God continue to bless Linden, New Jersey, and let us celebrate all our friends in the Asian American Pacific Islander community forever. Thank you.
Hello, hello, hello. Didn't I tell you we have young man, Mr. Delgado? I feel that young man energy. How about you guys? Our next and the final speaker is our Linden First Lady and Linden's teacher who helped supervise our students in Xiamen and also taught French to Xiamen foreign language school students. We welcome Ms. Olin Armstead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Are you having a good time? I know I am. Before I begin, I would like to take this opportunity to thank someone who's very important in my life, and that is, and I call her Mom, Mrs. Tomasik. I love you. You know, and I want to thank you for believing in me. You offered me the opportunity to go to China 2 times, not 1, 2 times, and I really appreciate it. You fought for me for the 2nd time, and I know what you had to go through. It meant a lot to me, and I will never forget you. Thank you again. We have heard such powerful stories. I'm inspired, and Eloyd, the energy is amazing, and you know I love you too. I want to share some of my thoughts about bringing our students to China. I had a unique perspective. Since I was a French teacher, I had the opportunity to teach French to our sister school student at Xiamen Foreign Language School. And you might say French. Well, French in China is considered the language of I shouldn't say bourgeoisie, but if you're from a higher echelon of society, speaking French is the language that you learn in school. So it was an honor that I was chosen thanks to Mrs. Tomasic, who fought for me to go. Thank you again. That experience really opened my eyes. As I walked into class, I immediately greeted my students in French. They were very attentive. Pens, notebook, they were ready to take notes and learn. I was excited. But when I asked them questions about their opinions on various things, and one of the things that we discussed is transportation. It was the first time that regular people were allowed to buy cars in China. So I was charged with the responsibility of discussing transportation in French, the challenges. Rather than launching into a common lecture, I asked them questions. But I noticed they were very quiet and they were very hesitant. But they were all looking at me, very serious. And I'm wondering, maybe they didn't understand or something. But it wasn't because they didn't know French. Because they study every night. Especially if they knew an American teacher was coming, they studied all night and they were ready for me. So they were very quiet, not because they didn't know French, but the hesitancy grew from other issues, culture issues. So this was a big challenge, and I had to figure out, They were used to their familiar model of Chinese schooling. Teachers were the ones with the knowledge, and their job was to carefully listen to me and master that knowledge. If I asked a question, it was to reflect what the teacher had presented. The notion that their opinion mattered was of any importance in the classroom was an underdeveloped idea. But I had not only come to teach French, I also wanted to expand the understanding of our host students. Because our goal as educators is to have our students become lifelong learners. So my job was not only to teach French, I wanted them to become thinkers, problem solvers of the world, which meant we had to engage in discussion. So their opinion mattered. I made them understand that you will change, you are the future. Your opinion matters. I want to hear from you. It took a little work, but eventually we broke the ice and were able to carry on a dialogue. It was important to not make judgment about which classroom method was better or worse. So it wasn't that the American method was better than the Chinese. It wasn't about that at all. The understanding that I came away with and the insight I hope they had gained too was that cultural understanding was the key to understanding each other. Being culturally aware, diversity, it's very important in education. On my flight home, I had much time to think and reflect on the experience because it was a long flight. 15 hours? So I had a lot of time to reflect. I had been on exchange trips before, like my trip to France when I was younger. But this trip was different. I thought to myself about the changes we are seeing in America as an ESL teacher, because we get students from all over. I'm sure most of you are aware of what's happening in the Ukraine, and Linden has a very big Polish population, so we are anticipating more and more Ukrainian students to come to our school districts. And we have a job, we have the responsibility to ensure that when they come to our district, and that they feel home and ready to learn. And having that cultural understanding is key. American schools are becoming more and more diverse. And like my experience in China, if we don't understand the cultural context in which students are situated, it's very important, then we risk more misunderstanding, behavior issues, and lost learning. Because think about it. Think about a Chinese student who comes to school in America, and their teacher asks them questions, and they're not responding. We may think that, oh, wow, well, the student is being disrespectful, or they're not, they're being defiant. I asked them the questions, they're just not answering me. But that's not the case. Having that cultural understanding eliminates all these misunderstandings, all the assumptions about other people. So it's very important that we take the time to learn about each other. As I landed in Newark, I knew we had to do better. When I visited China and taught Chinese students, I renewed my belief that empathy, which is lacking, unfortunately, in today's society, empathy, the ability to understand others, the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes. As educators, we must do that in the classroom. When our new ELL enters our classroom, we have to take the time to get to know their culture, and it takes empathy, which is, to me, I teach my children every day. I renewed my belief that empathy and cultural understanding were the core of building the students' relationship necessary to get students to learn. What I mean by that is that if a student understands, if you take the time to show students that you understand their culture, that trust, that trust that's needed in order for them to learn, especially if they're from someplace else. We don't know their stories. Like I said, think of the children from Ukraine that are coming here. Think about the experience that they have to go through before they get to America, before they come to our country. Think about that. As educators, it's our responsibility to do the work. It's very important, or else we're going to lose them. It had to be based on respect, understanding, and caring. That insight was my gift from China. You have heard so many meaningful stories. Those who came to this country and those who reach out to learn about others. I too am excited to celebrate Asian American Pacific Islander Month with our partners here from Fujian. I am forever grateful that you welcome us to live in your culture. And I am hopeful that all our students, Linden students, and Fujian students came away better for the interaction. I know I did, and I'm forever grateful. And on that note, this is the end. And I want to thank all of you for coming. And as Mayor Armstead stated earlier, in Linden, we celebrate all cultures. Everyone matters. You know, this is the world that we need to imagine if everyone had that belief. And I'm gonna walk, before I leave, one word that I want you to keep in mind: empathy. Just empathy. That word, very powerful word. Powerful word. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, okay.
She's got one more thing.
My first lady, I really dig your dress. Okay. Now on to the official ribbon cutting of the impression of Fujian cultural events, both here in Linden and for the state of New Jersey. Mayor Armstead, if you could proceed to the ribbon, and if our VIPs can join with Mr. Mayor, then we will officially open our event.